So here we have another sample question. This is number 18. This one has to do with division of polynomials. So the last group, the last 5 are all about multiplication of polynomials. Now there are 2 different types of division problems. We'll start with the easier one right here. What makes this easier is because notice the top has 3 terms, a trinomial, but notice the bottom just has 1 term. So this is a polynomial divided by a mononomial. When you're divided by a mononomial, we can make this pretty simple. Step 1 is to take each of these terms and put it over the same mononomial. So let's do that. So all I'm doing is taking each of these terms and putting over negative 8c squared. Make sure you bring over the signs. So remember that's a negative, I brought that down. And then the second piece, positive 40 c squared over negative, same mononomial. And then our final one. Basically, I made mini problems. In each of these mini problems, we can do the quotient rule. Remember the quotient rule is where you have the same base on top and bottom, that we can ask the 2 questions. Where do I have more of that like base, top or bottom? And by how much more? So for example, here we have C and C, but we know we have 5 on top, 2 on the bottom. So you know you have more C's on top, so we'll put the base on top. And then by how many more? There's an extra 3 on top. Remember, quotient rule is subtracting the exponents. Now, the other part that we have to do, or step 3, would be to reduce these, the coefficients. So just like a fraction, you're either going to do this as a tree diagram, or you should know that a negative 32 divided by a negative 8 would be a positive 4. And since 32 is the bigger number, we know the 4 will go on top. Occasionally you might have more at the bottom, but in this case, forget about the signs. 32 versus an 8, more on top. That's why the 4 is on top. We're going to do the same thing for this. Ask yourself the 2 questions. For the like base of C and C, notice I have C's on top, C's on the bottom, but there's a tie. Anytime there's a tie, the same amount, 2 on top, 2 on the bottom, then there's no winner, okay? So then we're not going to have any C's here. If you had more C's on top, you put it on top, more on the bottom, but if there's a tie, no C's at all. But then we're just going to reduce these coefficients. Positive 40 divided by negative 8 would be a negative 5. And we're going to do the same thing here. Ask yourself your 2 questions. Where do I have more C's? Well, here I clearly have more C's at the bottom. Remember, if you don't have an exponent, there's always an understood 1. So 1 on top versus 2 at the bottom. Notice I'll actually have more C's at the bottom. By how many? 1 versus 2, just an extra 1 at the bottom. And then here, you're going to reduce this. So negative 8 divided by negative 8 is going to be a positive 1. So where would I put the 1? Well, remember, if you have everything at the bottom, you need to have something on top here. You cannot have it naked. So we know that I'm going to put a 1 here. So this divided by this, I just put it on top here. That way you have a numerator and a denominator. The last step is to take each of these 3 pieces in our mini problems and put it together to get 1 polynomial or 1 answer. So notice this is 4c cubed. Next, negative 5. So notice I put minus 5. And this, since this is a positive, put a plus. And because this is a fraction, leave just this third part as a fraction. 1 over C. And there's your final answer. You have 3 pieces as 1 big trinomial.